the only thing that I can physically do is be the light that I believe is along the divine path, the one that wants to unify humanity. And that's what I'm doing here. You can't force people, right? You can't force people to vote for the American Congress Party.
Welcome to another episode of the Olive Roots podcast. I'm your host, Chosi Ayub. Today we have a guy with many titles. He's very interesting. He's a 5 times business owner, 4 times CEO and founder, vice president of engineering and AI, secretary general of the American Congress Party, spiritual leader, millionaire, and future president of the United States, Clayton Cuteri. Clayton,
Thanks for having me, Josie. I'm excited to be here.
man, I had to get that off my chest.
Yeah, I think we were talking about how there's also podcaster, there's podcast producer, there's future Hollywood studio exec, there's future music producer. So the titles are best-selling author. We forgot that one too. There's a lot. There's a lot. I lose track sometimes.
I love it. I love it. You're a man of many skills, man. So thank you for taking your time, man, to join me today. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to talk about how we can save the world, how we can get to the place of new heaven, new earth. And so I'm very grateful for the time of you having me on your podcast, sharing my message with the audience.
Amen to that. Well, the first portion I would like you to go over is your identity. So you can begin with your ethnic background. How was your family raised? Where were you raised? And where you are today?
Sure. I mean, yeah, if we're talking about it in that light, I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My father's side of the family, I would be third generation from Italy, Sicilian, so South Italy. Hopefully, no Northern Italians are going to get mad at me. All love. And my mom's side of the family, we actually have a huge lineage, huge family tree, which dates back to her side of the family being in America, being in North America since the 1600s. So her side was probably some of the first European settlers, colonizers to come into America. And so I have a very interesting background, I guess, of third generation Italian. And I don't know, whatever that is, 10th generation in America, something like that. So that's my, I guess, bloodline, if you will. And, religiously, I was brought up Presbyterian. I know you said we might want to get into that more later in this podcast, but started off being raised Presbyterian, going to church every Sunday, started questioning the church at a certain point, and now I would consider myself spiritual. I see truths in every religion, and there's a unifying thread that exists through all of them. And so I see that also as a part of my journey to help bring us all together, to realize we're one family, to promote unity, to promote that silver lining that coexists in all religions.
I love it, man. I'm all about coexistence. And this is something that Palestine was known for, especially when it talks about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. But obviously, things changed since 1948, and things change everywhere. You know, people come in and out, and there's so many things that happen around the world. So, growing up in the US with Italian background, how much were you ingrained in the Italian identity, food, culture, music, or were you disconnected and your generation was more assimilated as being just like an American?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say a little bit of there was probably a little bit of both going on throughout my life. Again, my mom being in America as long as her family was, mixed with my dad's, like, second, third generation, you're kind of at that point where I wasn't really brought up speaking Italian. My dad doesn't really speak Italian. I know some of the basic words because I've been over there, I visited multiple times, but you don't really, you start losing it, I guess, at a certain point. So, we made homemade pasta. I have all the best recipes for pasta sauce and all of that. So it was kind of a hodgepodge. It was kind of a mixed bag. We have some of my mom's side of the family, traditions, but I wouldn't say I really got an authentic Italian upbringing. We would have family reunions, if you will, where, everyone kind of was balding and, looked the same with on my dad's side. But yeah, it wasn't really, I don't think it was like as big as being, well, I'm Italian to the core, but it was more of like this mix of a little bit of each.
Tell me about growing up. How was your mindset? I know you talked a little bit about your faith, but what did you grow up around as far as people, diversity? How were your parents? How did they raise you? And in comparison of how you were raised in the US, comparison to today, what do you feel like changed and where are we heading?
Sure. I mean, let's see here. Growing up in Pittsburgh, you have a wide variety of cultures. You have Polish, you have Germans, you have Italians. You got everything because Pittsburgh was a big hub for where a lot of people settled. They would come in through whether it was Ellis Islands, or I believe there was another one that was a little bit more south, maybe like Philly, and they would kind of migrate westward, and they would kind of stop around Pittsburgh and kind of branch out. We have the three rivers there, so it was big, kind of like it was a good spot to create a city. And the steel industry became huge very quickly, so a lot of different communities started popping up around or in Pittsburgh. So it really gave a very wide diversity, a wide range of cultures, of people, of languages, and so that was kind of the founding area, and I guess it came into my life of, being understanding, but, my mindset was I was very much a curious person, and I still am to this day of, why do we do things? If someone told me, "Well, that's just the way it is," I would always question it. I was always that kind of kid who was very introspective spective and outrospective at the same time. I was very curious about people, very curious about social engagements. Simultaneously, I was an extremely good athlete. I played three sports throughout for as long as I can remember: football, baseball, and basketball. Did extremely well. Could have probably went D1, but it would have been probably riding the bench. And so I was like, well, let's learn about computer engineering instead. I was brought up Presbyterian, like I said earlier. Always fought to go to church. Always tried to sleep in, but my parents knew all the tricks to get me out of bed. And, it was kind of just like kind of going to church, like going through the motions. I would say probably looking back on it, I was probably more agnostic at the time, kind of just like going through the motions, like, okay, this is interesting. What's true here? What do we know? And I would say from a political standpoint, I was brought up pretty much conservative, I would say for the most part. I believe, we were watching Fox News a lot. That was kind of the propaganda I was brainwashed with. And kind of just going through it all of, being told that someone like Gaddafi was evil, being told that, Israel's our greatest ally, never questioning these things. Because I think when you're a kid, you just kind of absorb what the narrative is around you and never really realizing what the bigger picture is, what the motives are. I was under the belief that 9/11 was because of these Islamic extremists who were living in a cave in Iraq and Iran, and or yeah, in Iran, and you come to find out they weren't even involved in it. So why were we there? And so I think a lot of that really fundamentally shaped my viewpoint of the world, and then come to understanding of, whenever I started kind of peeling it back. And I kind of was, again, with politics, kind of agnostic. Like I remember the first uh the first election I was going to vote in was Mitt Romney and Obama, and I remember walking to the poll with one of my buddies, and the line was like 4 hours long. And I was like, dude, we shouldn't wait in this. And he's like, yeah, but like we should vote, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, wait, who are you voting for? I was like, Mitt Romney, but I don't really care. And he was like, oh, he's like, I was going to vote for Obama, but I don't really care. And I was like, well, were you going to vote for any other options? I was like, no. He's like, well, I wasn't either. I was like, all right, so we just have to promise we hang out the rest of the day, make sure neither one of us goes to the polls, and we'll be good. He's like, all right, deal. So that was kind of like my mindset for my first election cycle. And then President Trump enters the scene, and I became like hardcore MAGA to my blood. I was like, this dude isn't held by any accountability. He's not held to any of these political standards. He's talking like one of us. I was in college, so it was like very much like my bro candidate. I was like, he's talking about how we should never have been in Iraq and Iran. We should have never destabilized those governments. I was like, this is the guy. He's, kind of being a rage baiter. He's insulting these politicians. It's hilarious. And it was very much a bro, season. And I thought that was so cool. And, a part of me thought, this guy's going to be the unifier. I was like, this guy has what it takes to unify us. Well, ironically enough, I'll skip some of the details, but one of my best friends in college, different person, was extremely anti-Trump. And one thing led to another, and our entire friendship just crumbled and deteriorated from that moment on. It was a very slow burn, but eventually, we're now at a point where we don't talk to each other. We've been to the same weddings, we won't talk to each other. So it's very hostile in those regards, and it's a whole different thing. But again, being the curious person I am, I'm asking myself, like, how is it possible if I think this guy's the unifier, but yet in my life, he's destroying relationships? I mean, obviously, I'm responsible. I'm not trying to put that blame on him at all. But how is that possible if he's truly the unifier? So I stopped paying attention to news. And the next time I picked up a newspaper was whenever the injections happened, whenever our favorite little thing happened in 2020. So I wasn't watching the news for maybe 4 years. And then I was told, as a healthy adult working out 10 times a year, 10 times a week, sorry, not a year, 10 times per week, that I had to stay inside. And I looked at all the numbers, I looked at all the data, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This is ridiculous. No, I'm not going to put a foreign object into my body. I'm perfectly healthy. I'm probably in the top 1% of being a healthy individual. I'm eating all natural foods. This doesn't make sense. This is stupid. And I've always been very, I would say, libertarian in nature, of like, let people be free, let's reduce taxes. And the next thing you know, we're being told to stay inside. I lived in San Diego. You weren't allowed on the beach. You weren't allowed to go outside. You couldn't even surf. People were being banned from surfing. There was wakeboarders. You can look this up. People paddleboarding who were getting arrested by cops. And I'm just saying to myself, like, this is 1984. This is insanity. And then come to find out, Trump's the one pushing the agenda of Operation Warp Speed. And I'm thinking, like, this is not the same guy who I voted for. Like, what are we doing? What's going on? So 2020 election came around, and, I'm voting, or well, I guess I technically was like out of it. Like at that point, I guess it wasn't full Operation Warp Speed at the time, but I remember I voted third party for Joe Jorgensen, who I've never even seen speak before. But I was like, I'm libertarian. I don't really believe in the two-party system. Something's messed up with it. And of course, Operation Warp Speed happens. He's the one pushing for all of these, getting jabbed. And then it was super interesting to me that all the people who were getting jabbed were people who would have not voted for him in a million years. So it was like this very weird conundrum. And, keep flashing forward to where we are today. This past election cycle, I voted for the American Congress Party candidate. And I mean, to me, it was just this realization that Democrats and Republicans are pinning ourselves against each other. The only thing that they're simultaneously voting for is war. They don't care about what the American people want. 80% of Americans are against sending foreign aid to foreign countries to kill innocent people. So why is that the priority of our Congress? Are we even represented at this point? People don't want what's being shoved down our throats. And so to me, it just became this realization that, if you want to change the world, you need to be the change, be the change you want to see in the world, kind of thing. So that was whenever I kind of joined the American Congress Party. Simultaneously, as all this happening, I'm having spiritual revelations after spiritual revelations. But, I sorry I'm talking so much here, but you kind of get to this point where you realize that the entire system is just completely messed up and upside down, and the common people are suffering all over, whether it's Palestinians, whether it's Ukrainians or Russians, we're all suffering, whether it's Americans. And I just have this fundamental belief that in order to change the world, you have to change yourself. If you change yourself, you change your community. You change your community, you change your state. You change your state, you change your nation, you change the world. And so I fundamentally believe the best thing for the world is for America to focus on our citizens, making our citizens empowered, making our citizens lucrative, living long, prosperous lives. And ipso facto, we'll change the world because of it.
Amen, man. I agree with a lot of stuff you talked about. When Trump was becoming the president in 2016, the first term, I was still not a citizen. I was still on a green card. It took me 18 years to become a citizen. Came here on a student visa. Then I worked. I went to school. I worked in college to try to make some money. And then I applied for the master's degree, got my master's, graduated. I had a work permit, then it expires after a year, then got H-1B visa, and then went for another degree, and it's just back and forth to try to find out how I can become a citizen. And then I got my green card, and then eventually in 2019, I became a citizen. But in 2016, Trump was becoming, you know, the one who's going to be elected pretty much. He has the common vote. And then I was like, okay, this guy's a businessman. He's not a politician. There's not much dirt about him. He was in Home Alone as an actor. And I'm like, I'm seeing all these things and I'm like, I think he's going to do good. And then he said, make America great again. So I'm like, okay, if I was American, I will vote for him. And then in 2017, I see him in Jerusalem kissing the wall. And then I'm like, he converted. He converted to Judaism. And then now, his daughter did. So that already did not make me feel good. And then he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which is a dream of Israel. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh no, he's a Zionist agent. I already knew. Most people did not understand what I saw. And if I was trying to tell them that, they could not think outside America at that point. So like, yeah, but he's gonna make America great again. I was like, no, he's not. He's a Zionist. He's owned. And then come to 2020, then we had the potato couch, Sleepy Joe. And then I'm like, I can't believe this guy won. He can't finish one sentence, and he's 140 years old. And then BLM happened, and they let it happen and destroy the towns, and then the BLM turned to like a democratic party that is owned by George Soros and funded. It lost what it stood for in the beginning. And then I'm like, what the heck is going on? Then we get COVID and the jabs, and Trump pushed it, then Biden pushed it, and then all these wicked people pushed it. And I'm like, I'm not taking that. And then we come to 2024 during the genocide in Gaza. And they're like, yeah, Genocide Joe, we're going to get Trump. And I'm like, man, we're screwed. Like, you want Satan or you want Lucifer? You want the Zionist state or the Zionist state? And I'm like, man, we're losing hope. And then you see how much it's in your face right now, the Zionist control over the United States and the government. And you're like, wow, they're not even hiding it anymore. It's just like right there. And then Benjamin Malkowski, aka Netanyahu, he keeps coming to the White House, to the Congress, and they're standing for him like he's God and sitting is like a ritual. Then every congressman going to that wailing wall and humping it and grabbing it and sobbing and kissing it. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So when you start seeing all these things as an American, because I'm American, but I was born in Palestine, but you're an American that was born here. What do you feel when you see all that stuff?
It's a good question, and I mean, I'm kind of reeling back my history. Like I was reliving like what I was thinking as you were speaking there, and I remember in 2017 reading that headline of Trump moving the embassy to Jerusalem and thinking, being told it was a big deal, and at the time, like I didn't know what that meant. I didn't care. I was like, so what, you know? Time goes on, and I think October 7th was really when I started diving deep into what was happening in Israel and Palestine. And because I honestly, hand up, I was ignorant. I didn't know. I was told Israel's our greatest allies. If you're a Christian, you have to be in bed with Israel. Israel's God's chosen people, which never made sense to me because the way I see it is that we're all fractals of God, of source, of nature. And so to say that one group is inherently more important or more valuable than another, I was like, that doesn't register. Something's wrong there. And so to me, like, the whole wailing wall thing, kissing the wall, like I never really understood it. I actually made a trip to Israel, I think back in 2021. And even at that time, like I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand. I remember going to Jerusalem specifically and thinking, like, you have where Jesus carried the cross, which is one of the most symbolic things in Christianity. You have the Wailing Wall, one of the most symbolic things in Judaism. And you have Temple Mount, one of the most symbolic things in Muslim or Islam. And I remember just thinking, like, something happened here. Like, I don't understand what's going on, but for three religions to signify this area as important, like, I didn't know. I was like, what? Like, we have to research this. Someone should figure it out, you know? And so then I don't think even then I really connected the dots of what was happening until I started getting more involved in politics. And October 7th happened a month before. I was like, I need to join the American Congress Party because it was October of 2023. November, actually, at the end of October, November 11th, 2023 was whenever I joined the American Congress Party. And so that one was when, to me, it was like, hey, if you're going to be in this, you need to be well researched on what's going on. And so, obviously October 7th just happened. And me with my curious mind, it's like, well, why did October 7th happen? Why did Hamas do this? Why were innocent people killed? How many were killed? Who killed them? And you start pulling that thread of, well, Iran's saying death to America. ISIS is saying death to America. Why are they saying that? What happened? Oh, we overthrew Iran's a naturally elected leader with Operation Ajax. Okay, well, why did the United States and CIA overthrow it? And you start pulling this thread. You go all the way back to 1948, whenever Israel established. Well, what happened before that? Oh, you have the Rothschild bankers who are owning both sides. Oh, they had an agreement with Nazi Germany through the Havara Agreement and through many other documents that indicate that the Zionists were working with Nazi Germany. Oh, well, why are we focused on the 6 million Jews that were killed in Nazi Germany, but not the 80 million people who died in World War II altogether? Because that's a far bigger number. Why is it the 6 million's more important? You start pulling all these threads and realizing how deep it unravels. It goes back to when the Rothschilds started taking over the bank, started their banking cartel with the Federal Reserve in 1913. Why did that start? You go back even a little bit further. Oh, the Rothschilds have funded every single war since the Napoleonic Wars. Oh, what happened before that? You keep going back and back and back, and you realize that there has been this underlying energy of what I would call just the spiritual fight, the eternal spiritual fight of good and evil. And we're seeing it play out. And you have these microcosmic steps that are taking us deeper and deeper towards evil. More and more evil is occurring. And so, again, from my perspective, right, is we need, where I'm at now, the understanding I have now is just that we're sending billions of dollars to kill innocent people, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's Israel, it doesn't matter. We're killing innocent people. And I see it. And I called it 4 months ago whenever we took an airstrike on the first Venezuelan ship or the drug cartel boat, alleged drug cartel boat. I was like, they're creating another war. I was like, that's the goal here. I said it in the very first podcast I made. I was like, this isn't going to stop with one alleged drug boat. They're going to go and try to create an entire war with Venezuela. And, it's all it is really is, what do you call it? Pattern recognition. That's all it is pattern recognition. I mean, and we did it in every single other country. I mean, we've done it in South America over 60 times in the last 100 years. It's just you see it happen again and again, and it's you really truly sit back and you're like, well, America, because you have so many of these things going on at once. America can't have healthcare. Israel has healthcare. We're funding a genocide, but we're not. We're okay with the poisoning of our food, our water, our medicine. And so to me, you kind of have to really do your own research to realize how deep and how far all of these things go and realize that the problems of today were not created yesterday. Most of them are a chain reaction of events that have been occurring, in my opinion, for the last 5,500 years. You go all the way back to the Khazarians, you can go back to the Canaanites, you can go back to the uh, who else do we have? Freemasons, the pharaohs, even. And you just realize the Babylonians, and you realize that all of this has just been a giant chain reaction of events that has been happening for almost 5,000 years, a little bit more. And so to me, enough's enough. We needed a political party to stand up and talk about these things. Because when was the last time you heard Republicans or Democrats talk about the influence of Khazaria on present day? When was the last time they talked about the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers and their influence in the medical institutions or our education system and how it's predicated upon slavery and a slavery mindset? And, there is no political party talking about that except for the American Congress Party. And so that's really, I guess where I used to be and how I've got to where I am today.
Wow. Okay. So you mentioned October 7th. So you saw what happened on October 7th. You might not have known much about the Israeli government and that Gaza is like a concentration camp. I don't like to call it an open air prison because you need to be a criminal to be in prison. So it's a concentration camp. And based on the technology that that entity has, a bird or a fly cannot fly over Gaza without being detected or taken out by a drone or a sniper, a robotic sniper, because they have, the technology. So you see the guys taking a big, whatever, caterpillar tractor and going through the wall. Hamas, right? And by the way, between the border of occupied Palestine, also known as Israel, and Gaza, you have a big buffering area. And if you go through there, you get shot in the head. So now you have the tractor, whatever you want to call it, go and knock the wall. Then you have guys on hand gliders gliding and magically ending up in a festival that was moved 2 days before the event to another location. It's supposed to be another location. They moved it to the border of Gaza. And then you see these guys with the cameras and they're going on this kibbutz and they're taking prisoners, right? As they call them, hostages. So we got to understand they're hostages or prisoners because they call it war. So if it's war, it's prisoners of war, even though Hamas is not an army because they don't have tanks, planes. Then you see the cars, the footage of the Israeli propaganda of the cars that look like they got hit by Apache helicopters, tanks, and there's nothing left. They're burned. Even the rubber is burnt. And you know that the resistance group, Hamas, they did not have that technology. And then you keep watching the footage of the buildings, and then you hear about Hannibal Directive and how Israel killed its own people, and you see all that, and then a week later, the genocide is full on. Like, tell me about your thoughts during that whole chaos.
Well, I mean, again, I think this would have been a month before I really, well, 2 months, I guess, before I got involved in a month and a half before I really got involved in politics and started researching it. So to me, I again was, I guess, far too ignorant to have a formal opinion. Definitely didn't know about the Hannibal directive, didn't know about past situations. I did know, because I had visited Israel, that I did know that they have an extremely powerful military, a very strong surveillance state. They have videos of everything. They have people positioned all across the border. I think you, in your asterisks there, forgot to mention the soldiers, the whistleblowers that said they got stand down orders during that time in that location. And I think what I see, and I think the most important thing for us to kind of realize, or to at least focus on or be aware of, is that I think there's sort of this narrative, right, of even just Israel versus Palestine or Israel versus Hamas. And what I see is the people in power killing common people, right? Is definitely what Hamas did was wrong, right? It was definitely wrong. It was definitely a massacre. It was definitely brutal. But in no way does that justify Israel to go and kill, what is it, 80% civilians in this butchery that they're doing in Palestine and Gaza. They have the technology, which was demonstrated with Iran, where they would just be able to single-handedly take out Iranian leaders with, a drone or something like that. So, I think, again, it's like they're using evil to justify evil. What you're seeing is whether it's the leaders of Hamas or of Israel, they're killing innocent people. The leaders of Hamas are perfectly fine. They're living lavish lives. They're living luxurious lives. Bibi the bully Netanyahu living a luxurious life. You have their families living luxurious lives. They're not putting their family on the front lines to fight or to kill. The last time that a leader was on the front lines, at least of a major nation, was Napoleon III with France in, I think, 1780, which is forever ago in modern history. And so you have to realize, Putin, for instance, he's not putting his life or his family's life on the line. Zelensky, same deal, not putting his life on the line. Trump, none of his family's on the line. And so it really highlights that the quote unquote elites, the rulers of this planet, they have no skin in the game, quite literally. They are completely fine. They send our brothers and sisters to die. And it's always us who foots the bill. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. And we're the ones sending military grade weapons over there to kill innocent people. It's absolute evil at its fundamental core. And so, whenever I say this so that we can have a better, let's say, viewpoint of what's going on in the world. We're not sitting here saying, well, Hamas did evil. Well, Israel did evil. You play this what if game or the what about game. Well, what about them? What about Biden? What about Trump? He did this. Well, Biden did that. And you realize that they're all a part of George Carlin said it best. It's one giant club and you're not in it. And so what you have to realize is that it's the giant club is the elite, it's the ruling people. They live lavish, luxurious lives, and then they send common people to kill common people. It's what's been happening for hundreds, if not thousands of years, and it has to come to an end. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they don't put any of their lives on the line when they're the ones making the decision. They're the ones deciding to kill innocent people. And so I think that if we're able to get to this place where we view the world as realizing that the elite, the people that are running and making the calls, are fine, and it's the common people who constantly are getting foot the bill, whether it's monetarily or with our own blood, I think that's when we'll make a giant step forward in our political, our geological, our economic, our socioeconomic dialogue.
I agree, man. It's like all these elites, like a big club, and you're not part of it. It's a real thing because people don't know that. Let's just look at the US, for instance. You don't know if Trump and Biden shake hands and be like, well played, buddy. You don't know what's going on. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton is all of a sudden is hanging out with Trump and supporting the same things he's supporting when they were supposed to be rivals and she's supposed to be the devil. So that's very interesting to see them just all hanging out.
I mean, they literally do it though. You see the G20s. You see Zelensky was just at Trump's house. He was just at the White House. Trump has flown and met with Putin. They shake hands, they take photos together. They're not, fighting. We're not seeing a boxing match between Trump and Putin, that just doesn't exist. And I'm not saying that we should, but what I'm trying to say is that they can work things out diplomatically. They can talk behind closed doors, they can exchange words. But then if they disagree, the common people have to die, the common people have to suffer. We're not having some sort of Hunger Games match with their own families. It's our brothers and sisters that have to die. I mean, to me, it's ridiculous. They can pose for photos, they can be, nice in public, and then they get on Twitter or they get on X or they get on True Social, and it's everybody else's fault except for theirs that the world's going to bits, and then they have to kill people. It's once you start looking at it that way, it's absolutely silly that we're at that place.
I would love to see a match between Putin and Trump. I think Putin will win. He
Yeah, I
wrestles with
mean,
bears.
yeah, that would be interesting to see
Yeah.
the
All right, let's
training
switch
regimen.
gears. Let's talk about your spiritual journey. So growing up Christian with the Italian background and then moving to more of a spiritual way of life. Tell me about your whole journey.
Sure. I mean, and it's beautiful because it really ties into politics and kind of the whole agenda and how religion is warped into the political landscape as well. Where, again, brought up Presbyterian. I would have been born 1994. Was Presbyterian essentially. If someone asked me what I was, I said Presbyterian. Didn't really know what that meant other than, Jesus Christ died for our sins. But I started kind of questioning a lot of the narratives throughout Christianity is like, well, if Jesus died for our sins, why are we still calling ourselves sinners? If Jesus died for our sins, why is there still sin throughout the world? Why are innocent people dying? There's a lot of loopholes, a lot of, what is it? Not loopholes, yes, but also contradictions within Presbyterian, I mean, Christianity, all the religions. From what I know, I don't want to say they're all bad or anything. I don't know enough to say that. But in my journey, I think it was about 2015, they politically they decided that there was a Supreme Court case to decide if gays could get married. Now, personally, being brought up conservative, I didn't really care. I thought if someone had a right, if one group of people have a right, everyone should have that right. Whether or not government should be getting involved in marriage, I think it's a separate issue. But if straight people can get married, why can't gay people? Like, I didn't understand that. Like, to me, I was just like, let everyone get married. Whoever wants to get married, go for it. What happened though is that a week before the ruling, for those who don't know, the Supreme Court ruled that gays could get married. A week before the ruling, the Presbyterian Church decided to change the Bible. They decided to change it from between a man and a woman to between two people. Now, to me, you want to talk about being confused. The ultimate confusion came over me. I was told that the Bible was God's word. This was God's word to humans, how to live a prosperous life, how to be perfect, how to reach heaven. I didn't want to go to hell when I died. I was told that this was heaven. And so it was at that point where I was like, wait, we can change this? And we're allowed to change this? I was like, I thought this was perfect. Well, come to find out, this isn't the first time that the Bible has changed. And this is kind of the pretext for my first book that I wrote, which talks about the Gospel of Thomas. And fundamentally, what happened throughout human history is, Judaism was around. It was the predominant Abrahamic religion. It was really the only Abrahamic religion before Jesus was born. Jesus gets born. He dies. He's crucified, resurrects on about 28 AD. Well, he was born, I think, 4 BC to 6 BC. Dies about 28 AD. From 28 AD to about 300 AD, different sects of Christianity started popping up, saying, Christians, the God incarnate. What do we believe? You have the Book of Enoch. You have the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. You have the Gospel of Thomas. You have all these different Christian books popping up. Well, what happened is about 350 AD, the heads of the biggest Christian churches decided to come together, and they said, you know what? We got to stop all this nonsense. We need to have a unified religion where we all come together and say what the truth is. And so ultimately what they did is they tossed out majority of the books that people read, the books from his actual disciples. And there's some disagreement on this point right here among scholars, but I tend to fall on the side of believing it, which is that none of the books that are written in the Bible, the New Testament that is, were people who ever met Jesus. There's only one person who may or may not have met Jesus, and I forget his name off the top of my head. I think it's St. Patrick or someone, but he didn't meet him until after Jesus resurrected, and he was actively teaching. He was actively preaching to people to not follow Jesus during his life until he met Jesus after Jesus' resurrection. And so a giant organization essentially formed and told people what to believe. And if you didn't believe in the set gospels that they decided you should listen to, you were persecuted. There was Gnostics, and this is what the Gospel of Thomas is about, who were, it was like Christian in the front, Gnostic in the back. Whenever they were out in public, they were Christians, but whenever they went home, they would read their Gnostic texts. And nobody really knew about this until I think it was 1945 in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, where they discovered like all of these hidden texts, which included sort of like, I think the Dead Sea Scrolls were a part of it, but they discovered all of these texts dating back to pre-300 AD, which talked about the Gospel of Thomas. They talked about the history. They talked about all of these. It was like a completely different lens of Jesus where, we're taught that Jesus is the way to salvation. Like, you have to go through Jesus. Like, Jesus is the connection between you and God. When you look at these other texts, Jesus taught that the kingdom of heaven was already within you. Jesus taught that there's a divine spark that lives within every single individual, and the path is through that spark. You can find it internally. And Gnostics believe you found it through knowledge. People can believe through devotion, through all these other means. But what I found so fascinating was just that even if, and you can take another step back here, is that Jesus would never have spoken English. English wasn't around. He likely spoke Aramaic or Greek. Those are like the two big ones that he may or may not have spoken. The Vulgate, which was the first written Bible, was written in Latin. So it's already at least translated once. And if you know anything about languages, translating something loses like so much of its meaning because you lose the culture, you lose understanding the nuances with certain words. And so fundamentally, we changed it at least from Aramaic or Greek to Latin and then Latin to English. So already we have two translations, which is going to drastically change the definition. And then furthermore, you have all of these changes since then. You have the King James Bible was in the 1600s. And then come to present day, we're talking about the Scofield Bible, which the Scofield Bible was basically putting all these little asterisks around what certain things meant. And so, where it came to this fundamental belief of, well, Christians need to give their life for Israel because those who will bless Israel will be blessed. And this book that was written in 350 AD was obviously talking about the state of Israel that was founded in 1948 AD. And the reason is that the Scofield Bible, which was funded by a Zionist, written by a Zionist, had these asterisks who interpreted the word and in Genesis of those who will bless you will be blessed, those who curse you will be cursed. And they translate it to mean, oh, this meant Israel. This meant the state of Israel. And hence that's where all the brainwashing comes. And you have all these Christian Zionists today where, everyone wants to kind of, it's like this meta thing of like everyone wants to blame the Jews. It's like, well, no, it's kind of more the Zionist. Well, it's not really the Zionist. It's really just people who are following Satan versus, people who are trying to find the right path. And so, my whole spiritual thing has really been unraveled. So now I would say I'm at a place with spirituality where, you pull back all of these religions, and Islam talks about Isa or Aisha. I don't want to pronounce it wrong, but Isa, who is Jesus, and they see him as a prophet, but they believe in him returning and coming back what's the word I'm looking for here? To
To end the Antichrist.
yeah, to prevent, to restore Dharma, they call it
Truth. To bring
Mahdi.
the
Yeah.
truth. Yeah.
Yeah, the Muslims call it Mahdi, Christians call it new heaven, new earth. The Buddhists call it Maitreya Buddhism, which is the reincarnation of Buddha. Hindus call it Vishnu, who Jesus was an incarnation of Vishnu, and they believe that Kalki is what they call the next incarnation. And so all of them are saying the same exact thing if we just look at the meta narrative here. And so, yeah, when I say I'm spiritual, I mean that I know Jesus existed. I know Buddha existed. I know Krishna existed. I know all of these divine figures existed on planet Earth. And my current understanding is, obviously you're going to have the second coming. And I actually just made a video that's going to be released recently, which talks about where Jesus is taking birth, and that I've been told that he already has taken birth. But I don't know how much of information I can go into there. I don't want to make too many things known that are not supposed to be known. But the short of it is that he may or may not have already taken reincarnation, and all the signs are there. All the signs we have there, natural disasters, famines, floods, devastation, war, all of it. And all of the sacred books talk about that this is the time when he's to reincarnate. And so, yeah, exciting times ahead.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
exciting times ahead.
Yeah.
So you take a visit to occupied Palestine and you go to Jerusalem. Where else did you go and what else did you notice other than seeing the religious places? Like, I'm sure you met Israelis and you met Palestinians. And what did you notice from an observation coming from another country? And at that point, you're not of a specific faith. So tell me about your experience a little bit deeper.
Sure. Let's see. So we did stay within the walled city of Jerusalem. I remember kind of walking throughout. I thought it was very fascinating how you have the Christian corner, you have the Armenian corner, you have the Muslim corner, and you have like the Jewish corner. So it's kind of like divided into these four corners. So I found it very fascinating that all of them, at least from my perspective, right, what the truth is, you can find from different people. But from my perspective, they were all living together in harmony. At least it seemed that way. You had these four quadrants, they were all together. There didn't seem like there was any war. But then I do remember seeing they had something where they showed the layers down because there had been so much destruction and devastation. It was like, all right, well, if you look down below your feet, you can see the level or what this was built upon, and you kind of had to just keep rebuilding because so much destruction kept occurring in this area. But I guess generally speaking, everyone seemed pretty, welcoming to me. I didn't really have any issues. that I can report on. Everyone was super nice, super friendly, didn't really matter. It was very interesting because you could see there was a very quick cultural shift if you walked from one quadrant to another quadrant. So I thought that was super fascinating. We went down to Eilat, which is at the southern tip of Israel. We crossed over into Jordan, so we went to see Petra, which obviously completely different culture and everything. It's basically just a desert land, but very beautiful at the same time. We came back to Israel, then we went to Egypt to see the pyramids, go on like a boat ride. But yeah, I mean, I guess generally speaking, I found it very fascinating. I was very confused. It was a very confusing place for me because I was told that, and I was brought up with the narrative that Christians and Israelis are fighting Muslims, but yet here's a place where Muslims and Christians and Israelis are all living relatively peacefully. And then we're all saying that something miraculous within our own unique individual religion happened here. So it was a very kind of perplexing situation for me. I didn't really know what to make of it at the time, and maybe I still don't to some degree, but I found it, I guess hopeful at least that we could all get to a place where it didn't matter what you believed, we could at least respect each other and we could all live in harmonies to some degree.
Wow, that's an optimistic way of viewing things, because, like from looking at it from the outside in, you can't really know too much of the depth of the stories. So I'm sure if you spend more time there and talk to different individuals, whether they were Jewish, Muslim, or Christian, Palestinian, or Israelis, then you probably will hear a different story. You'll find some things in common, then you'll find a lot of things that are not in common. But, I was born and raised there. I was born in an area before they put the apartheid wall. So now it's called the West Bank, right? And I was 20 minutes, 15 minutes away from Jerusalem. And now, because of the checkpoint, it takes an hour. And I went to a school in the old city of Jerusalem in the News Gate, where it leads you to the Armenian and Christian quarter. And it was a French school called Collège des Frères, which means the brothers' school. And the school was a Christian school with 70% Muslim, 30% Christian. And we never knew who's who. You never cared. You never knew, oh, he's Muslim, he's Christian. We're like, we're Palestinian. And we had Armenians, which we considered them like us. We didn't say, oh, he's Armenian. And we had Assyrians. We didn't say Assyrian. And we have Aramaic people. But we didn't have Jews because that state decided to segregate us because before 1948, Jews were living with the Muslims and the Christians. There were Palestinian Jews. So you go to school and you don't even think about Israelis or Jews. You're just living your life. And as soon as you get out of school, that's when you see the soldiers and that. So you can't escape that because you're not going to find Palestinian soldiers. All the soldiers are Israeli, right? So, and we can't own guns legally. So it's like a martial law, like a fascist state that the government is the military and the police side with the military and the military sides with the Jewish people. So it's kind of like when you think about it in the roots, it's like Nazi Germany. And they became the Nazis and we became the Jews. If you want to just look at that little piece, because we know World War One and World War Two was a lot more deeper than that, and what happened before that and what happened during. And there's a lot of lies and propaganda, which I don't want to get into right now. But if you look just about the story of these are Jews that were in concentration camps that went through a Holocaust, 6 million apparently, and then they come in ships to Palestine like cattle. That's what it said on the news. The British people said they were like cattle, which is interesting enough. They call us cattle. So they come there and then they're sprayed because of typhus, right? And then they come and we welcome them because we see oppressed people. We were kind and they took advantage of our kindness. So they come to Palestine. And I think some of these Jews that came did not even know what Zionism was, right? They just came, oh, this is the land of Palestine where the Jews are going to live in it and we're going to bring the kingdom of Israel. And then slowly within that group was that Zionist regime that used the Havara agreement with the Nazis to bring the Jews. And then all of a sudden you have the Nakba of 1948. And almost 1 million people lose their house and get killed in Palestine, Muslim and Christian. And then the Jews that were Palestinian, all of a sudden they stripped them out of their identity and they just called them, now you're Israelis. And they spoke Arabic, so they were discriminated, against. And then if you were in proper so-called Israel, you're an Arab Israeli. You're not Palestinian anymore. And then they make us use that language. So I refuse to use that language because I hear all the time they say, oh, the Jews and the Palestinians or the Jews and the Arabs. And I'm like, no, a Jew is a person who follows Judaism. So if you want to say a Jew, you say Muslim and Christian. If you want to say the Palestinians, then say the Israelis. And if you want to say Arab, like, what is an Arab? You can be an Arab Jew, an Arab Christian, or Arab Muslim. An Arab is a person who speaks Arabic in modern day. Palestine was Arabized, right? Before Arabic, we spoke Aramaic, which is what Jesus spoke, as you mentioned. So before that, we spoke Aramaic. Even the Jews there spoke Aramaic. They didn't speak Hebrew. Ancient Hebrew was only designed to read the Torah for biblical use. Modern Hebrew has no connection to ancient Hebrew. It's a refabricated language stolen from Arabic, infused with Yiddish and Latin, and they're like, ta-da! You have modern Hebrew. And then you have people that come from Europe and they can't pronounce the letters they're using. So they say it's a Semitic language, but you can't say ha, you say cha, because they say hummus, they say hummus. They can't pronounce the letter a, which means Arabi. They say Aravi. They don't say the b, they say v. And they can't say the ra, they say ra, like French. Au revoir, So you see all these things and you're like, what the heck is going on? And now they masquerade in there. They're raising that flag. And there's no such thing as Palestinians, apparently. We came from space. So it's interesting. You go there, and the first look is like coexistence, which unfortunately is not true. But I like your optimism, is that you see what the future can be, where a Jew, a Muslim, and a Christian in the Holy Land can live in peace like they did before. But I don't know if that's possible with the current regime that is there, the government, because Hamas was a reaction to what caused the oppression and the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Just like the Irish resisted the British and the Jews in Auschwitz camp resisted the Nazis, Hamas is Palestinians resisting the occupation. And resistance is not cute. What do you want me? You want me to clap for you when you come kill my family? No. I'm going to grab a gun and try to kill you. And that's what it's been breeding. It's like a record, right? So now you look at them killing 500,000 Palestinians. The number is not 30,000. 30,000 was the first month. They probably killed 500,000 Palestinians in Gaza. So now you have children getting raised either with no arms or legs or with no mom or dad. What do you think these kids are going to do 20 years from today? They're going to want peace? No. They want to avenge their parents. So that's why they try to kill all the children, because they know when they were going to be grown, they might resist. And resistance in Gaza happens in 3 stages or 3 parts or 3 different ways to resist. Armed resistance, which is Hamas. And then you have journalism, which they get shot. Israel killed more journalists than anybody else. So that's a resistance because you're showing the truth, which I might be doing that if I was there. Who knows what I would do if you kill my family? Maybe I'll be with the armed resistance. Who knows? And then the third part is the medical field. You're saving lives. You're pulling people from under the rubble. That's the 3 jobs you have in Gaza right now. You're either fighting for your people, which includes killing, or you're showing the truth with your cameras and you might get shot for it, or you might be saving lives and your hospital gets bombed. So either way, you're going to get killed. So might as well pick one. And then you have the women and the children try to keep the children sane, try to give them some kind of education, try to still be the nurturing moms and stuff. So it's insane what's happening there. But what do you think the solution is? Like, what do you think would happen in Gaza, and what would happen in America with the control of the Zionism? Like, where do you see this heading? Because as you can tell, a lot of people are waking up. Zionism is exposed. America's going down because of the Zionist state of Israel. So it seems like eventually America has to cut the cord to save America. I want to save, I'm in America. I want to make America great, period. Not again, period. So, what do you think is the future of America, and what do you think is the future of the Middle East or Gaza or the Zionist state? What do you see?
Well, the answer in short is it depends on what people want. I think it's interesting because one narrative, I agree with everything you said there, but one narrative that Israel will put out there is, well, you have to kill the kids because the kids will become terrorists. And I find it laughable when I hear American politicians talking like that because the fundamental principle, and it's very similar to what we're doing in Venezuela, the fundamental principle is that we believe in innocence till proven guilty. I believe within every single individual, like at least two paths, fundamentally, is two paths. One's the divine path, then one is the demonic path. The beauty of free will is you get to choose which path you follow. So the evil, if you will, within Israelis, within Zionists saying all the children have to be killed because they will become terrorists is that it's half true. It's like, well, if they choose the demonic path, then yes. But we don't kill people because they may or may not follow the path. We hold them accountable once they choose the demonic path. If you steal, we don't say, well, I have hands, so I could steal. It's like, no, once you steal, then we prosecute. So I find that to be one of the disingenuous things. And I think one of the meta issues that we have across the world is that it's very difficult for people to know what the divine path is versus what the demonic path is. And it's going to look different for everybody in their life. And I think that there are a lot of different energies that are corrupted on this planet. There's a lot of different ideas that corrupt our moral compass to not sure. I think a lot of people believe they're following the divine path, but it's maybe the demonic, or they're following demonic and they think it's divine. And I think that the planet as a whole has a spiritual crisis on our hands of not knowing or not being sure which path is which, by and large. I think there's a select group of people who know that they are on a demonic path and they're trying to guide humanity towards that demonic path. You should hate these people. You should hate those people. Don't love them. You should hate them. When I think that maybe being spiritual in the divine path is realizing that everybody on this planet has a familial relationship to us. And you can see that with pretty much anybody you talk to. Maybe it's with you. Maybe there's some brother energy there. Maybe it's friend energy. You'll talk to another person and maybe they're kind of like a father to you. Maybe they're like a son to you. You talk to another person, maybe it's a girl, but you see them as just a friend. Or it could be like a girlfriend. Maybe there's lust energy there or sexual energy. So it's a girlfriend. We have this relationship with everyone, uncles, cousins, whatever it is. And I think the divine path is recognizing that within everybody we run into and starting to see that and appreciate people for that path. And I think one of the big tests that the world has coming up is to realize and to be able to see through that illusion. I think that's where people need to wake up and start realizing that we're all in this together. We're one family. We have to come together. We have to choose to come together. We have to choose to honor that divine spark, that spiritual spark that lives within all of us. And so I see that as maybe the metaphysical answer to your question. Physical layer, what I have seen what I have been guided to, what I've been told, is that there are a lot of systems that need to be shifted and changed. We kind of talked at the beginning here with how I'll be creating a Hollywood studio, how I'll be getting into the music industry, creating a record label at some point, is because even those industries have been perverted. You see the destruction, the evil. You're encouraged to in rap, you're encouraged to steal, to kill, to rape, all these things that are very evil, very demonic. And people will say, well, it's just lyrics. It's just a movie. But there's subconscious programming that happens to you if you keep listening to the same song. That'll become your reality. You'll start to carry out those things in your life. And so there's a purification process that needs to occur on this planet. It needs to happen monetarily. It needs to happen with our financial system. It needs to happen with our education system. It needs to happen with our political system. It needs to happen with our movie system. It needs to happen in our entertainment, our music, all of it. It's all corrupted. It all needs to be purified. And so the only thing that I can physically do is be the light that I believe is along the divine path, the one that wants to unify humanity. And that's what I'm doing here. You can't force people, right? You can't force people to vote for the American Congress Party. You can't force people to listen to your music or watch your videos. And it's where I kind of, you gave the laundry list of things that have empowered me and made me wealthy and created my jobs and everything. And the reason I'm able to do that, I feel, is that I have a vision that's bigger than myself. I have this vision of the new heaven, the new earth of Mahdi, the Satya Yuga, where we are aligned, where we're one family. We're all on our path of what Hindus call dharma, our divine path, our spiritual path, our path of unity, of recognizing and realizing that divine spark that lives within all of us. And so, in order for that to come to fruition, I have to be the best person I can be. I have to be the most loving I can be, the most understanding. I have to understand the energies as well as I can. I have to be able to see through whether it's Satan masquerading himself to guide me down the wrong path, making me think it's divine. It's a tricky fight. It's a tricky battle. It's the ultimate battle. It's the battle of existence, if you will. And so what I see, and again, the question is when, right? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And the when is up to the individual people listening to this. But the ultimate thing that I see kind of playing out is that we'll likely have a financial collapse in the system at some point. We'll realize that we have to get rid of the Federal Reserve. We'll realize we have to get rid of usury law. We have to implement usury laws to make usury illegal. We need to make fractional reserve banking illegal because that's causing tremendous amount of problems. We need to go back to the gold standard. And I think with that, it'll be a part of that purification process where people will realize, wow, I've been lied to by the Republicans and the Democrats. Is there anybody who's been talking on podcasts about the Rockefellers, about how they've poisoned our medical institutions, how we used to be on homeopathy, but now we're sticking oil into our bodies, oil-derived medicines, how we haven't been educated on breath work, on meditations, on proper emotional intelligence, on financial literature or financial literacy. And so when that collapse, right? Because if everything's going well enough, right? If you're comfortable, there's no change. You don't change until things get so bad where you're like, I have no other option but to change. So what I guess I would prophesize is that unfortunately there will probably be an economic collapse because of the demons who have been running our economic system. And then that'll be when the American Congress Party will kind of come shine forth. It'll be like, hey, we've been telling about this. Here's the solution. People will start to realize, start to see it for themselves. And, that will lead to the American Congress Party becoming the ipso facto or the de facto political party within America. We'll create we'll create prosperity. We have plans to lower energy costs. We have plans for more transparency. You can find all of this at americancongressparty.com. We're going to purify the education system, which I talk about on my podcast. It's called Indigo Education, which you can find at travelingtoconsciousness.com. There's an Indigo Education tab. I tell you and teach you all the spiritual techniques that have brought me to becoming a millionaire within 22 months and started all these businesses, which still doesn't make sense to me because I'm enjoying every single second of my life. And it's like these things are just happening. But I think it's a testament to once you're on the right path, once you're enjoying the present moment, new information will come to you, new knowledge. And it's very difficult because people are worried about their bills, they're worried about their kids, they're worried about the food that's being poisoned to them. We're not taught how to be in harmony with nature. We're not taught how to be in harmony with each other, with ourselves. And it creates a bunch of dis-ease, right? You're out of ease. You're not in ease. So there's a lot of dis-ease. We see that mentally, we see it physically. And so I think there will be probably some sort of economic collapse. There will be some sort of system failure that happens, and maybe it'll be one big one at one time, or maybe it'll be small ones that kind of pile up. But over time, people will start looking for new voices, new leaders, and that's where the American Congress Party is going to come in. That's where, like myself, and why I even kind of gave you in the intro there, future president of the United States, is that I see that as the reality, the path that this planet is on. And so it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. How can people support the American Congress Party if they're interested?
Yeah, AmericanCongressParty.com. That's going to be your starting point. If you're interested, we're right now, you can sign up, you can get involved as short as a newsletter, you can donate, you can sign up to volunteer. Right now, we're recruiting people for some of the leadership positions, which I don't think there's a button on the screen. I sent a newsletter out recently about it. But if you go to AmericanCongressParty.com/leadership dash apply, I know that's a difficult one, but if you're called to it, you'll find it. um, so right now we're taking applications in order for us to find those leaders, because if you look at it from an energy perspective, it's not going to resonate with everybody right now. Everybody's lives are good enough where they're just like, it's a problem, but I'm not going to do anything about it. So the people who are willing to do something about it right now are going to be the ones who will be the leaders of tomorrow. It's going to be the people who can see, multiple steps ahead and realize that that is the path that we're headed. So AmericanCongressParty.com is going to be your best bet. If you can only help financially, that's great. If you can help with some of your time, that's great as well. If all it is a newsletter and we have your vote, that's just even amazing as it is. But yeah, AmericanCongressParty.com is going to be your starting point to figuring out how you can get involved.
Awesome, awesome. And Clayton, where can people find you as well?
Yeah, at Clayton Cuteri on every social media platform. Instagram is blowing up, Facebook, TikTok. Well, TikTok, I've been banned 4 times. Not surprised there with Larry Ellison taking over, known Zionist. But if you can find me on TikTok, I am there. But the best one's going to be Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. Going to travelingtoconsciousness.com is going to be the best as well. So you can sign up for my newsletter there. If you want to hear me talk weekly, Traveling to Consciousness podcast with Clayton Cuteri, that's where you're going to find that, where I talk about the week in review and some spiritual knowledge every now and then. But yeah, I mean, it's an honor to be here. I'm glad to kind of talk to your audience, talk with you, hear more of your perspective, and yeah, we got a lot of things to do. So
Yeah, man, we
um,
have a lot to
yeah.
do,
So
you
the more
know.
people that can help with the mission, the better. And if it's not today, it'll be tomorrow. And I look forward to working with everyone at some level.
Likewise, man, we got to save America and we got to save this world that is falling apart.
100%. Listen, we didn't even touch on it, but nuclear weapons, nuclear war, that's the biggest threat we have facing the planet right now. So we got to denuclearize everything. Nuclear energy is going to cause problems. Nuclear war is causing problems. So we need to denuclearize. We're playing with fire we can't control.
100%. Well, Clayton, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here, an honor to talk to you, honor to hear your perspective on everything. We're on the right path. It's just the best thing I can offer people is try to enjoy the present moment. Even when you're watching war, kids being mutilated, I know it's terrible, but try to avoid going to a place of evil and hatred, because that's the end goal. That's what they want. They want hatred, they want revenge, they need that energy. So try to enjoy. I know it's difficult to say, but I promise your life will get better and the world will get better because of it.
Amen, brother. Well, I'm going to have to go around and spread love and peace, man, and try to spread the message about the American Congress Party.
I appreciate it. I mean, just being here, you're doing your part, but any conversation you have, the better.
God bless you, man. We'll be in touch, all right?
All right. God bless you as well,
All
Josie.
right. See you, man. All right, guys, you heard it from Clayton, the man of many trades. He has a lot of different ideas, a lot of things going on. Check him out. Check out the Congress Party, the American Congress Party. Until then, Christ is King, and always free Palestine.